To many, King David is remembered as the fearless young shepherd who defied all odds, defeating Goliath, a colossal Philistine warrior with nothing but a sling and a stone. A boy whose bravery became the stuff of legend as he stood against Israel's greatest foes, the dreaded Philistines. But what if I told you that this heroic tale was before David ascended the throne? He was celebrated as a hero. But after being crowned king of Israel, his story took a dark turn. Power consumed him, and the once noble shepherd transformed into a ruthless ruler capable of unspeakable crimes, even against his own people. This is the untold story of King David. What led him down such a dark path? Did the weight of power corrupt his soul? Or was it the infamous Bathsheba who clouded his judgment and drove him to orchestrate the deaths of thousands? Or perhaps the seeds of darkness had always been within him, waiting for the right moment to surface. David's journey began in the quiet fields where he tended his father's sheep. But his life changed forever when his father sent him to deliver provisions to his brothers, who were stationed on the battlefield. The Israelites were engaged in a brutal war with the Philistines, and fear gripped their hearts. For 40 days, the formidable Goliath, a warrior towering nearly 3 meters tall, mocked Israel, daring them to send a champion to fight him in single combat. None dared to face the giant. When David arrived, he overheard Goliath's taunts and was outraged by the lack of courage among the Israelites. He also learned of the rewards promised to anyone who could defeat the giant, the king's daughter in marriage, and a significant fortune. Fueled by righteous indignation, David made a bold decision. He would fight Goliath himself. David approached King Saul with his daring proposal. Initially skeptical, Saul tried to dissuade him, saying, "You cannot go against this Philistine to fight him, for you are but a youth, and he has been a man of war since his youth." But David's unwavering faith shone through as he replied, "The Lord who delivered me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear, he will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine." His confidence silenced Saul's doubts. Saul offered David his own armor, but the young shepherd refused. Instead, David chose 5 smooth stones from a nearby stream, armed himself with his sling, and marched towards Goliath, relying only on his faith and skill. As David approached, Goliath's laughter thundered across the battlefield. "Am I a dog that you come at me with sticks?" the giant mocked. But David stood firm, his voice steady and filled with conviction. "You come to me with a sword and spear and javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have taunted." Without hesitation, David sprinted towards Goliath. He reached into his bag, drew a stone, and slung it with precision. The stone struck Goliath's forehead with such force that the giant staggered and fell face first to the ground, lifeless. The crowd erupted in astonishment as David, with remarkable courage, approached Goliath's body, drew the giant's sword, and severed his head. Lifting it high, he shouted, "This battle belongs to the Lord." The Philistines, seeing their champion defeated, fled in terror. Emboldened by David's victory, the Israelites pursued their enemies, securing a decisive victory. Word of David's triumph spread like wildfire, and the shepherd boy became a national hero, his name celebrated throughout Israel. David's newfound fame brought him both admiration and jealousy. While the people of Israel sang his praises, King Saul viewed him as a growing threat. Envy festered in Saul's heart, and although he reluctantly fulfilled his promise to give his daughter's hand in marriage to David, he sought to rid himself of the young hero. Saul demanded a dowry of 100 Philistine foreskins, hoping David would die in the attempt. But David not only succeeded, he doubled the challenge, returning with 200 foreskins. Despite his growing power and influence, David remained loyal to Saul, but Saul's paranoia spiraled out of control. One fateful night, consumed by rage, Saul hurled a spear at David, narrowly missing him. Realizing his life was in danger, David fled into the night, leaving behind the comfort of his home to become a fugitive. Though David's rise to power was marked by faith and heroism, it came at a cost. The bloodshed and victories began to weigh on his soul, planting the seeds of darkness that would later manifest. His story, once defined by unshakable faith, would soon be overshadowed by betrayal, sin, and redemption. This is just the beginning of King David's journey. From triumph to tragedy, his story reveals the complexity of human nature and the struggle between light and darkness. Stay tuned as we delve deeper into the rise, fall, and redemption of Israel's most renowned king. Though hunted relentlessly by King Saul, David's integrity remained steadfast. Even in exile, he found himself with not one but two opportunities to kill the man who sought his life. The first came in the depths of a cave, where Saul, vulnerable and unaware, wandered into David's hiding place. The second occurred during a night raid on Saul's camp, where the king lay sleeping, completely unprotected. Yet in both instances, David chose mercy over vengeance, sparing Saul's life. His actions spoke of a profound loyalty and compassion, proving that his heart was still guided by a higher purpose. But mercy did not free David from his plight. He spent months evading Saul's soldiers, cornered with no place to turn. Finally, he sought refuge in an unthinkable place, the land of the Philistines, Israel's greatest enemies. The warrior of God became an expatriate, forced to live among those he once fought, waiting patiently for the day he could claim his rightful throne. That day was not far off. The death of King Saul marked the dawn of a new era. David, the anointed of God, was crowned king of all Israel. Uniting the scattered tribes under his command, he turned his attention to a new goal: reclaiming Jerusalem. The Jebusite stronghold had long resisted Israel's advances, but David launched a daring and strategic assault, conquering the city. Jerusalem became the crown jewel of his kingdom, the political and spiritual heart of Israel. In a moment of profound devotion, David brought the Ark of the Covenant to his new capital. Accompanied by music, dance, and sacrifices, the people celebrated the tangible presence of God among them. David, once a warrior shepherd, now stood as a spiritual leader, guiding his people in worship. It was then that God revealed an eternal promise to David, saying, "I will raise up after you one from your own body, and I will establish his kingdom." This covenant assured David that his lineage would endure forever, ultimately culminating in the Messiah. With God's blessing, David led Israel to unprecedented military success. His army triumphed over the Philistines, Moabites, and other adversaries, solidifying Israel's position as a regional power. Yet, these victories came at a cost. Power began to corrupt the king's heart. One such victory against the Moabites revealed a chilling transformation. After defeating them, David ordered the prisoners lined up and measured with a cord. 2/3 were executed, while the remaining third were spared and made servants. This act of brutality hinted at a growing darkness within David. It was during this time of unchecked power that Bathsheba entered David's life. One evening, from the heights of his palace, David's gaze fell upon Bathsheba as she bathed in the privacy of her home. Her beauty ignited a desire within him that consumed his judgment. Though Bathsheba was the wife of one of his most loyal soldiers, Uriah, David gave in to temptation and lay with her. Unbeknownst to him, this encounter would set off a chain of devastating events. Bathsheba soon discovered she was pregnant. The scandal threatened to unravel everything. In desperation, David devised a scheme to conceal his sin. He summoned Uriah from the battlefield, hoping he would sleep with his wife and provide a plausible explanation for her pregnancy. But Uriah, a man of unwavering integrity, refused to indulge in the comforts of home while his comrades risked their lives in war. Frustrated, David resorted to a darker plan. He sent Uriah back to the front lines, carrying a sealed letter to Joab, Israel's commander. The letter contained orders for Joab to place Uriah in the fiercest part of the battle and then abandon him, ensuring his death. Oblivious to his king's betrayal, Uriah delivered his own death warrant. In the heat of battle, he was left defenseless and fell to the swords of the enemy. With Uriah dead, David took Bathsheba as his wife, believing the scandal buried. But the eyes of God missed nothing. The Lord sent the prophet Nathan to confront David. Through a poignant parable, Nathan exposed the king's sin. "There were two men in a city," Nathan began, "one rich and the other poor. The rich man with countless flocks welcomed a traveler into his home. Instead of taking one of his own sheep to prepare a meal, he seized the poor man's only lamb, a creature loved as a daughter, and slaughtered it for his guest." The story enraged David. "That man deserves death," he declared. "Such injustice cannot stand." Nathan's piercing gaze met the king's as he delivered the shocking truth. "You are that man." In an instant, David's sins, lust, betrayal, and murder, were laid bare. The weight of his actions crushed him, and he realized the depth of his transgressions. While God forgave David, the consequences of his sin would reverberate through his family and kingdom, marking the darkest chapter of his reign. In a single moment, reality struck David like a thunderclap. Nathan's parable was no mere story, it was a mirror reflecting the depth of his sin. David had coveted another man's wife and orchestrated the shedding of innocent blood to conceal his transgression. Nathan, unwavering and resolute, pronounced God's judgment. "The sword will never depart from your house. Shame and chaos will arise from within your own home." The once celebrated king, who had danced with abandon before the Ark of the Covenant, now stood utterly exposed, his soul laid bare before the truth. But even in judgment, Nathan delivered a message of mercy. Although David's sin would unleash devastating consequences, God, in his infinite compassion, would spare David's life. Redemption was still possible. David's story, though marred by darkness, would not end in despair, but in the light of divine grace. Stricken with guilt, David fell prostrate before God, confessing through his tears, "I have sinned against the Lord." Yet, repentance could not shield him from the ripple effects of his choices. The son born from David's adultery with Bathsheba fell gravely ill. Despite David's fervent prayers and fasting, the child succumbed to his illness on the seventh day. This tragedy was only the beginning of a series of horrors that would unfold within David's family. Darkness crept into the royal palace, igniting a series of events that echoed David's own sins. Shattered and shamed, Tamar fled, her torn robes and ash-covered face a testament to her suffering. Her brother Absalom, enraged by her ordeal, took her into his care and silently vowed vengeance. David, upon hearing of Amnon's atrocity, was filled with fury, but failed to deliver justice. His silence hung heavy, an unspoken wound within the family. For 2 years, Absalom's anger simmered, festering into a calculated thirst for revenge. At a sheep-shearing feast, under the veil of celebration, Absalom set his plan into motion. As wine clouded judgment, Absalom's servants struck with precision, killing Amnon in retribution for his crime against Tamar. With his brother's blood on his hands, Absalom fled into exile, fearing his father's wrath. In exile, Absalom's bitterness transformed into ambition. For 3 years he bided his time, using his charm and charisma to win the hearts of the people. Promising justice and equity, he cast himself as the champion of the downtrodden, steadily undermining David's rule. Secretly, he plotted a rebellion to seize the throne from his father. When the time came, Absalom marched toward Jerusalem with an army of loyal followers, forcing David to flee. The once mighty king, humbled and broken, ascended the Mount of Olives barefoot, his head covered in sorrow. Meanwhile, Absalom entered the capital in triumph, claiming the palace and violating David's concubines, fulfilling Nathan's chilling prophecy. Absalom's rebellion culminated in a decisive battle in the forest of Ephraim. David's forces overwhelmed the rebel army, and Absalom, in retreat, found himself ensnared by fate. Riding through the forest, his flowing hair became tangled in the branches of an oak tree, leaving him suspended and helpless. Joab, David's general, seized the moment and drove 3 spears into Absalom's heart, ending both the rebellion and his life. When news of Absalom's death reached David, grief consumed him. His anguished cries echoed through the palace. "My son Absalom! My son Absalom! Would I had died instead of you, Absalom! My son, my son!" The weight of his sins bore down on him as he mourned the loss of 2 sons and the irreparable harm to his daughter, all stemming from the same sin, unchecked lust. Amid the darkness, a glimmer of hope emerged. Solomon, the son of David and Bathsheba, was born. Though conceived in the shadow of sin, Solomon's birth was a sign of God's enduring mercy. The prophet Nathan, who had once confronted David with his guilt, now came bearing a message of redemption. By divine command, the child was named Solomon, meaning peace. Solomon's arrival symbolized a chance for renewal, a tangible reminder that God's grace could bring light even into the darkest corners of life. Through Solomon, the lineage of David would continue, carrying the promise of an eternal kingdom. David, though scarred by his failures, remained a man after God's own heart, striving to guide his son toward wisdom and righteousness. The story of David, marked by triumph and tragedy, became a testament to the complexities of human nature and the boundless mercy of God. Solomon grew up carrying the dual legacy of his father's life, a shadow of sin and a promise of divine blessing. David, fully aware of his own shortcomings, dedicated his final years to guiding Solomon toward wisdom and righteousness. With a heart heavy with experience and urgency, David implored his son, Timothy 2, secondary 1st and 2nd, "Know the God of your father and serve him with a perfect heart." But David's story was not yet finished, and its darkest chapter was still to unfold. In a moment of unchecked pride and ambition, David succumbed to the temptation to count his people. A census driven not by necessity, but by vanity. Despite the stern warnings of Joab, his trusted general, David persisted, seeking to measure his kingdom's strength and glory in numbers. This act defied the sovereignty of God, Israel's true ruler, and provoked his righteous anger. God's wrath burned against David, and the prophet Gad brought forth a stark choice of punishment. 7 years of famine, 3 months of relentless military defeat, or 3 days of a devastating plague. Faced with these dire options, David turned to the God he had betrayed, placing his fate in the hands of divine mercy. "Let us fall into the hands of the Lord, for his mercy is great, but do not let me fall into human hands," he pleaded. The plague swept through Israel, leaving devastation in its wake. Watching the suffering caused by his arrogance, David's heart broke. He fell prostrate before God, crying out in despair. I am the one who has sinned. I am the one who has done wrong. But these sheep, what have they done? Please, let your hand be against me and my father's house." In his repentance, David sought to reconcile with God. He purchased the threshing floor of Araunah, a site of significance, and built an altar. There he offered sacrifices of atonement, seeking to appease divine wrath. The plague ceased, but the scars remained. The land was devastated, and the weight of lost lives bore down on David's soul. The warrior king, once renowned for slaying giants and conquering nations, now stood face to face with the fragility of his own humanity. In his darkest hour, David came to understand that true greatness is not found in power or might, but in humility before God. Amid the storms of his life, David found solace and strength in God's presence. With a heart laid bare, he poured his soul into poetry and music, birthing the Psalms. These compositions, born of triumph and failure, joy and anguish, became a timeless testament to his relationship with the Creator. Among them, Psalm 23 stands as one of the most cherished. "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." David wrote over half of the 150 Psalms, each one a reflection of his journey. A man after God's own heart, seeking redemption and peace. On his deathbed, David passed the mantle of leadership to Solomon, the son of redemption. With trembling hands and a full heart, he anointed Solomon as his successor, entrusting him with the throne and the fulfillment of God's promise. After 40 years of victories and failures, joys and sorrows, David breathed his last. The sweet psalmist of Israel was laid to rest in the city of David, Jerusalem, a city he had conquered and transformed into the heart of his kingdom. Solomon took up his father's legacy, becoming the bearer of the divine covenant. Under his reign, Israel reached its golden age. Wisdom flourished, peace prevailed, and the temple of God rose as a testament to his presence among his people. Yet, even amidst Solomon's greatness, the shadow of his father's sins lingered. Solomon inherited a weakness familiar to his lineage, lust, a flaw that would ultimately shape the trajectory of his life and reign. David's story, marked by profound triumphs and heartbreaking failures, is a reminder that God's grace can redeem even the most broken of lives. It is a testament to the power of repentance, the beauty of humility, and the enduring promise of divine mercy. Discover the captivating story of Solomon, the wisest king to ever reign, whose unparalleled wealth and power made him the envy of nations. Yet, beneath his wisdom lay a fatal flaw: his weakness for women. Like his father David, Solomon's desires led him down a path of temptation, ultimately causing his downfall and the loss of everything he built. Uncover the rise and fall of a king whose life teaches timeless lessons about ambition, temptation, and faith. Click now to explore the untold story of Solomon and his journey from glory to tragedy. Dear brother, if you're going through a lot of troubles in life, we'd like to share with you some useful pieces of advice inspired by the content of this video. We hope these tips will be helpful to you. Guard against pride and vanity. Pride often leads to poor decisions and unnecessary risks. Like David counting his people, overconfidence can alienate us from our values and humility. Stay grounded, acknowledging that true greatness lies in service, not self-exaltation. Learn from your mistakes. David's repentance after his sins shows the importance of acknowledging mistakes and seeking redemption. Accept your failures, take responsibility, and commit to learning and growing from them. Redemption is a process of transformation, not denial. Value humility over power. Both David and Solomon's stories remind us that the pursuit of power without humility can lead to devastating consequences. Approach every position of influence with humility, recognizing the weight of responsibility that comes with it. Recognize the power of redemption. David's life illustrates that even after severe mistakes, redemption is possible. Always strive to make amends and live a better path. Remember that forgiveness, both from others and yourself, is key to moving forward. Stay accountable for your actions. Solomon inherited both his father's legacy and his flaws. Understand that your choices impact not only your life, but also the lives of those around you and even future generations. Act with accountability and integrity in all you do. Trust in divine timing and guidance. David's patience in waiting for his rightful throne and Solomon's reliance on divine wisdom teach us to trust in higher guidance. Resist the urge to rush outcomes. Instead, align your actions with your purpose and values. Beware of temptation and its consequences. Both David and Solomon fell to their weaknesses, reminding us of the dangers of unchecked desires. Cultivate self-discipline and seek support when faced with temptation, ensuring your actions align with your values. Invest in wisdom and knowledge. Solomon's pursuit of wisdom made him a revered king, proving that knowledge is one of the greatest assets. Continuously seek to learn, grow, and apply wisdom in your decisions. Build a legacy with purpose. David established Jerusalem as the spiritual and political heart of Israel, while Solomon built the temple as a testament to divine presence. Focus on creating a meaningful legacy that reflects your values and contributes positively to others' lives. Stay connected to your faith and principles. Despite their flaws, both David and Solomon leaned on their faith during trials. Build a strong foundation of faith or guiding principles to anchor you in times of uncertainty and challenge. A life aligned with values is a life well lived.